What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show here live on DSM Media's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. Guys, if you guys are new to the channel, first and foremost, make sure to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the channel, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show or catch any of our DSM pregame lives during the Phillies, Sixers, and Eagles seasons, make sure to check us out on the YouTube link specifically. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and it is the best spot to get your comments pulled up on the screen here with your host. I am one half of them, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Scotty Drown. Eagles, Howie Roseman, NFL Draft, Night 1. Absolute masterclass, my friend, as the Eagles come away with not one, but two Georgia Bulldogs in Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. Scotty, I'm going to throw this to you in a second, but I told you I barely slept because of excitement. You slept like a baby because you got everything you wanted, like a little kid on Christmas morning. This was arguably, I want to say probably, the best day one draft I can remember the Eagles and or Howie Roseman having. And yes, I know it's been trending that direction the last couple of seasons. Obviously, he takes that wide receiver we all wanted a couple years back in Devontae Smith. Great pick. We loved it. Last year, he gets, Jordan Davis. He also trades for A.J. Brown. We loved it. But, trades aside, NFL players aside, pure prospects, pure draft selections, this was the greatest day one ever in recent, or maybe in ever in Eagles history. I could not be happier about it. We're going to break down both of these draft picks, our thought processes, how they fit with the Eagles, and much more today, guys. Give us your thoughts on both picks. But Scotty, my man, how are you feeling on this Friday morning?
I'm ready to get round two started, man. That's where I woke up this morning. I told you I went to sleep peacefully after that 30th pick, and lucky enough, we stayed up and we got a nice reward rather than a trade back, which I saw Howie was talking about. He was actually looking at trading back for that 30th pick, but then they saw Nolan Smith there still on the board, and they're like, okay, let's just hang around and see if we can get him. And they ultimately were able to get him. And as you know, that's somebody that we had worked our way around mentally, being okay with taking at 10 or 14, right? Trade back,
trade
do
back
this,
slightly.
that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, man, I'm really juiced up after that draft.
Blown away.
First round. Like, you ask for all these things as an Eagles fan, and Howie Roseman says, okay. Like, there's no like argument. He's just like, okay. Like, I'm going to go and do that, and you guys are going to be happy as hell. Because, like, last night, it just, like you said, it's like a kid opening up each present under the Christmas tree, and it's like, oh, it's the new Xbox, and, like, oh, my God, it's the new Madden to go with the new Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, it's just getting everything you want. It's like overload in a sense, man, because we ultimately get, two guys that were looked at as, like, top 20 picks. And you look at Jalen Carter; he's the top 3 talent in the entire draft,
right?
And
arguably the best prospect in this
draft by giving up a 4th round pick.
Yeah, to move up that one spot just to secure your guy, man. But let me start with Nolan Smith at 30, just because you touched on him first, right? And I feel like we have a lot more to talk about with potentially the best player in this draft in Jalen Carter. But Nolan Smith falls to 30, and you mentioned it, right? And I tweet, we were talking about it on the pre-draft party. Like, I can't wait to stay up till God knows what time, how many hours this draft is going to be on, for a guy or so to be there that we would potentially want Howie to select, and he trade out of it in Howie fashion and get another, 4th, 3rd rounder or 2nd rounder in a future draft or whatever the case was. And you kind of start to get to that mid-20s range. And not only is Nolan Smith there, there's about 4 defensive players there that you would be more than happy for the Eagles to take. Myles Murphy was there up until Cincinnati at 28. You had Nolan Smith, the edge rusher from Georgia. You had Joey Porter, the corner out of Penn State, right? You had Brian Branch, the safety. You had about 4 guys with 2 or 3 picks to go. So it was like, man, they're going to come away with at least one of these guys, knock on wood. Myles Murphy goes, and now you have a decision to make. And my mindset here, Scotty, was still I trust Howie with my life at this point, but still hesitant to completely buy into him taking the guy you want at 30, because the way I look at it is it just seemed too good to be true. Like, he already went defense. Hell, he already went defensive line. Hell, he already went Georgia defensive line. Like, he's not going to add this other edge rusher that you want. And he does it, man, without hesitation. And they're celebrating the war room before the draft picks, announced. And I'm like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And it's Nolan Smith. And it's like, the fact that you would have taken this guy at 10. Would I have been happy with Nolan Smith at 10? No, I wouldn't have been ecstatic with it.
Yeah.
One of those players I would have been okay with, because at 10, it doesn't hold the same weight. He's not that type of day one ready. Like, he's a little work in progress as an edge rusher coming out. But at 30, paired with the already A+ prize, this was a grand slam, knock it out of the park home run by Howie Roseman last night.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those things. We saw him, what he said after he made the pick, and it was, don't get cute. And I think that's exactly what he did here. He didn't, overthink the pick. There's a couple different routes he could have went, and I wouldn't have been angry. Like, if he would have drafted Brian Branch, I wouldn't have been mad. Joey Porter Jr.
Not at all.
At that point, right? Like, we already got Jalen Carter. It's not that big a deal. But you had a chance to catch in twice, and he ultimately took that. But you talked about their war room, man, and they showed it before the Nolan Smith pick. And it was actually insane to just see the Eagles organization laid out like that, right? Like, it looked like a mafioso type of situation. Like, all these guys just standing in the background looking at Howie, and it's just like they're all just soaking in what Howie's doing, and Howie's having a great time in there, just slapping hands with everybody. There's none of those vibes from a couple years ago with the Milton Williams pick, right? Like, none of that. Everybody's in the room, happy, having a good time, laughing, and you got like 100 guys in there, mind you, all waiting for this pick to go down. And then on the other side with Nolan Smith, you see Nakobe Dean there at his, at his draft party. Jordan Davis was there. So they both were right there to like congratulate him once he was able to join the Birds. So it is interesting, man. And you talk about Nolan Smith. He does have some work to do, but I think we'll be able to get him on the field immediately. Like,
absolutely. I think he's a day one plug-in rotation piece.
Yeah.
For this team.
He gets to learn from the
absolutely.
Guy,
I mean, he's just, whatever not concerns are, but whatever the knocks on him is, he just has some work to do, I guess, with technique and coming off the edge as that premier edge rusher. And his size, he is a little bit smaller, like Hassan Reddick, as you mentioned. So he's going to have to put in extra work. But as Jason alluded to here, like, you have the guys in place, you have the structure in place to get this young core ready to go. And man, I cannot praise that pick enough because of where it fell, right? But let's talk about this. I mean, you idiots, you absolute morons inside the top 10 allowed the defending, reigning NFC champs to go and get the best player in this draft. That is utterly insane, man. Listen, that's what also makes this night surreal, right? You and I spoke on it, and we're not going to lie. We had a lot of discussion around Bijan Robinson in the last week or so because we didn't want to go offensive line, and I don't know how real we viewed a Jalen Carter trade up, but that was ultimately the dream pick. He was number one on both of our boards. The fact that it didn't take trading up with Seattle or in front of Seattle, with the fact that it didn't take trading up with Vegas or Detroit at 6 or 7, and you're watching this board play out, and he doesn't go at 5, they take a corner.
Yeah.
And then Detroit trades out at 6, and Arizona does not go. Arizona's going offensive line. And then and then something happens here, and it's like, oh my God, he's actually going to fall. We're at 9 with Chicago, and part of me is like, Chicago's going to take him. And then I'm scrolling on Twitter, right? Because obviously you get the Twitter updates 5 minutes before anything happens on television. And the Howie Roseman moves up. Now, what creeps into my mind for a second is like, I hope he didn't move up to take Skoronski ahead of Chicago. And no, he left no doubt, my man. He takes the best player in this draft. And again, I don't even know how to put it into words, man. Like, what is the one thing? What is the one possibility he maybe slid for? Off the field issues, right? Immaturity, character issues. We know the tragic incident that he was involved in that happened. I understand it. You have two guys, you have multiple guys, but you have two guys specifically on the defensive line in Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox in veterans that are going to help shape this young man's character and get him NFL ready and mature him ASAP. But here's the most beautiful part. You drafted two of his former teammates last year, and you drafted his buddy this year. You don't think that brings a comfortability, stability to this young man as he comes here? If that makes sense to you, like, you don't think that makes him more comfortable day one to have not one, not two, but three former teammates and friends surrounding him in the same area, holding him down? You know what I mean? So, like, all of those four guys together now get to play. And a year or two ago, this Georgia Bulldog defense was looked at as maybe the greatest defense in college football history. Well, Howie Roseman looked at that and said, yeah, I'm going to take him, and him. And now we have four of the core pieces from, quote unquote, the greatest college football defense in history, man. But what are your thoughts on the Jalen Carter pick outside of the fact that he's the best player in the draft?
Yeah, man. Obviously, it was the number one priority for us going into this draft was to get Jalen Carter, and to come out of the draft the way it fell, to only give up a 4th round pick to ultimately move up and get him. It was really crazy to see it play out in front of my eyes. But you talk about the fit with Jalen Carter, the off the field baggage, whatever the case may be. He's coming to a team that's ready to go. And you look at all the teams in the top 10, there's no other team that was in the top 10 of this draft that were stabilized and ready to go after an NFL championship. And the Eagles were that only roster in that top 10. And I think that's ultimately why they were able to go out and get Jalen Carter, because they do have the environment to bring him into, even with everything that's happened off the field since the Georgia season has ended. We have the proper people in the building to take care of this guy and make sure that he's groomed into the guy that he's meant to be. And it was a blessing, man. I saw once Seattle, really, the dominoes started falling. It was Houston. Trade up, you get CJ Stroud, and then you trade up to go ahead and draft Will Anderson right after that, which, you know, with Houston, it's interesting. It's like, okay, like, you're really going all in. You love these two, right? Like, you have to love these two if you're going in to get these guys next to each other. And then Anthony Richardson falls at 4 to the Colts. And then obviously the Devin Witherspoon pick to Seattle.
That's the biggie.
That was the big one, because Seattle, Pete Carroll, that's the other team. While they're not ready to go out and get a championship per se, they are right there as far as stability. They do have a system there with Pete Carroll. He's a guy that can get guys on track and keep them on track. So they also had some good leadership in that building. But they go the secondary route. And mind you, they stacked Devin Witherspoon with a couple of their guys that they had from last year, the two rookies that play really well in their secondary. And they're gonna be something to watch out for. But then you have the Cardinals, right? They trade up to 6. They take Paris Johnson. I was worried at 6 that the Cardinals were going to snipe us. I was actually really worried at that point that they traded up there to get Jalen Carter. But ultimately, I think the Cardinals
protect Kyler, man.
Smart route. Jonathan Gannon. I was actually proud of Jonathan Gannon in that moment, because I was like, you son of a gun. You know you got to protect Kyler Murray. It's smart. It's not like he made like some over the moon pick. It's the smart pick for the Cardinals. Nonetheless, you move, then you get to the Raiders, right? And the Raiders, hell no, that's not the place that you're sending Jalen Carter, right? Like, you had the Henry Ruggs situation. They're in Vegas. Like, you just don't need that if you're Las Vegas. So they take Tyree Wilson, who before the draft apparently had like the medicals come out or whatever. He's a top 5 talent in the draft as well. And then you get to 8, and you just knew at that point, right?
Yep.
Atlanta's going to take Bijan Robinson just because that's what Atlanta does. They do dumb stuff. So let them go off and do it. And then right before, mind you, I didn't check Twitter for this whole situation of the draft. I didn't check Twitter during it. I just watched the
I
show.
couldn't help myself, man.
I was on FaceTime with Darius and HP and Will, and we were just going through it together. And right before they announced the Bijan pick for Atlanta, they slip it in. They're like, "Oh, and the Eagles just traded up to number 9 with the Chicago Bear." And it's like they said it so quick and like didn't make a point to like put it out there because I guess they just wanted to get to the pick. But at that point, right? Like, and now you're just asking yourself, what did they spend to get up into the to the 9th pick? But they take Jalen Carter, bro, and like I said from the beginning of that story, the number one prize at the beginning of the night was Jalen
absolutely
Carter. A bunch about Bijan Robinson, but Jalen Carter was the prize. He's the generational talent. He's the pillar that we talked about, right? He is that guy. He's the guy that takes Fletcher Cox's spot down the line. You balance him out with Jordan Davis. Like, not only is it the two defensive tackles from the Georgia Bulldogs defense, but they balance each other out. Like, they're
polar opposite types of players.
They're both monsters, but one's a run stuffer, one's
a pass rusher,
disruptor, right? And so that's beautiful. And then obviously Nolan Smith and Nakobe Dean, and you just see like the bond that they have. It's something that's going to stick together. It feels like we have something that can stick together for a really long time in Philadelphia. And we're just getting started. This is day one. This is day one. We're talking legacy right now.
Drafts are not won on day one, but listen, man.
Legacies.
The thing with these 2 first rounders as well, obviously you knew you were getting that with Jalen, but not trading out of the first round and getting Nolan Smith there too. Like, the first rounders allow you to have the 5th-year team option. So that extends this pick for even another year if it gets to that point, if the Eagles already don't extend these guys, where these guys are locked in for about a half a decade, man.
Yeah.
And those clips were hilarious. Like, Mika wants to be an Eagle so bad. Like, it's funny at this point. What's even funnier, man, is I'm not even
like
going to
us. Mika is like us.
Yeah.
He's like, what, man? No. Yeah. Oh, what? They got Jalen Carter. What? It's like, no, he's like one of us. He does want to be an Eagle. It's weird, man.
But like there was a Cowboys either podcaster or just mega fan on Twitter, and I don't even remember his app, but he tweeted something towards Eagles fans after we selected Nolan Smith, and he's like, they only took Nolan because they think he's going to be Mika, but he ain't that. LMAO, common L. And then some Eagles fan found like tweets from this kid a month or so ago and screenshotted it and quote tweeted it with like the same Cowboys guy saying like, give me Nolan Smith, dude's a dog, all this shit. And it's like, man, just like what's funny? If the Cowboys made a good pick, I'd shake your hand and say it's a good pick. Unfortunately, they didn't. So that was even sweeter on top of everything else. But I think, dude, you brought up the trade up to 9 for Carter, and obviously we mentioned Smith already falling to 30. Yeah. Like, that's what makes this night even like greater somehow. It's not only who you wanted, it's not only like how much they can help day one, which they are day one impact players, which is very important here. It's the fact that what it took. We sat here on the pre-draft and talked about, man, like, what do you think they're going to have to give up to move up to 5 or 6 to get Jalen Carter? No, they gave up a 4th to move up 1 spot to get the best player in the draft. Will they trade back to get Nolan Smith in the mid-teens? No. Nolan Smith fell to them at 30. 30. 1 pick left in the first round. 30. That's the absurdity of it all, man. And that's what makes nights like draft night so spectacular and so fun to watch. I think it's just still a little bit surreal to me that like it actually played out that way, and like Howie and the Eagles actually made it come true.
And I think it just speaks to Howie Roseman, man. He's learning as we go, right? He just keeps getting better and better. And I think this draft was just one of those where he had to show a little bit of patience and trust in the board, right? And
he let the board fall right to him, dude.
Yeah, he had to show a little bit of patience. There's so many moments where he could have jumped the gun and shot up to pick 6 to go get Jalen Carter, and he just didn't need to do that. He didn't need to give up that extra compensation. So It's crazy to think about Howie Roseman, man. Yeah. Hey, I'm looking at this draft board still, and I'm just looking at what's still available. And it feels incredible because I feel like the draft is like over for me, and like there's nothing
right. Like if it ended right now, you would be happy.
Draft.
If it ended right now, you'd be happy with how it ended.
Plus.
Right.
That's
Except
it.
it's
Like
not
it's
over. It's not over. They get even another top 90 pick or whatever because of the Jonathan Gannon and Arizona Cardinals situation that comes out right before the draft with tampering and everything like that. And it's absolutely absurd, man. Like this is another thing, Scotty. Like they are coming off of a Super Bowl appearance. NFC champions should not have this draft. NFC champions should not have stolen night one of the NFL draft. That's what's utterly ridiculous about it. The reigning NFL champions, the reigning NFC champions added these two core pieces to go forward, added to already the best pass rush in the league, and just made it 1,000 times better. That was hilarious as well.
He needs to touch up.
He needs to remember nobody else's name on this defense for a second.
I think what happened, honestly, is that there was turnover this offseason, so he just didn't want to say guys' names that weren't there. Because I think he even slipped Hargrave in there and then was like, "Oh yeah, but he's he replaced."
Well, that's what I loved about that's what I actually loved about Mika's point was like he actually brought up the fact that like you lose Javon Hargrave, a 10+ sack guy. He goes, it's $85 million, and you replace him with Jalen Carter, who, let's be honest, we're hoping with being the best player in a draft, it has better higher upside than a Javon Hargrave, and you get him for a fraction of the cost for the next half decade. And this is exactly the point. This
is great value.
This
man.
Should not happen, and they let it happen, man.
It's tremendous value. That's what Mika was emphasizing in that video, and he's right. It's just tremendous value for what you give up. Ultimately, we could have offered, I'm sure, a bag to Javon Hargrave, maybe try to get him to stay, maybe take a little bit of a discount to stay, right? But Howie Roseman just kept it moving, man, and he trusts the process, and he went out and nailed this draft. The thing I'm looking at now, right? So I'm looking around this first round board, and I'm thinking, what else can we do here? How can it get even better, right? And how can we move around and change things even more? And I'm looking at this dumbass Detroit Lions team, that goes out and drafts Jahmyr Gibbs at
CPJ. Who?
Pick 12? Pick 12. You take Jahmyr Gibbs? I thought we were talking about him at 30, right?
And tell everyone what they did next, bro.
They have DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery.
Yeah.
Why are you drafting another running back?
After that pick came out, there were some Eagles-esque media people tweeting about DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, DeAndre's. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at here. DeAndre Swift. You know that I'm already high as hell on the DeAndre Swift train. Anyways, DeAndre Swift would be better than Derrick Henry. He would be better than Dalvin Cook. You're talking from an age perspective. I think he's like 24, 25 years old.
The injury bug scares you a little bit, but
you're not going to give up more than like a 4th round pick for him at this point. And the thing is, you get Bijan Caliber when he plays in DeAndre Swift for a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
You can take that risk on DeAndre Swift, man. And to end it off with DeAndre Swift, he's another Georgia Bulldog. So it just makes sense. It just makes sense. You add that explosive guy to that backfield with Jalen Hurts. You talk about the RPO with DeAndre Swift. I mean, that shit gets crazy. And he's a great receiving back, man. That's
exactly. And that fits a major hole and need that this team's looking for as well.
That's something to keep your eye on.
Tell everybody what Detroit did after that pick.
Then they go and they draft.
Who?
They draft Jack Campbell.
Who?
Jack Campbell with the 18th pick. Stealing him from the rest of the draft, man.
This is like what this entire conversation around how great the Eagles night one was encompasses. What do you always say on this show, Scotty? There's levels to it. There's levels to this shit. There is a difference between a well-run organization and a bad organization. You have the reigning defending NFC champions knocking night one out of the ballpark. And then you have a team who's trying to get into the postseason for the first time in a while. You and I have actually liked what they've done over the last 2 off seasons. They also have 2 first-round draft picks. And they reach on a running back who, if we're being honest, I know we said we take him at 30, probably isn't even a round 1 talent. You took him when? Oh, you took him at 12. Okay. And then you took...
Like, what?
You took your head
go at 12, not Jahmyr Gibbs.
You took your head coach's distant nephew or something because, he bites ears off and loves his toughness. Who the hell is Jack Campbell, bro? Who is Jack Campbell? I couldn't tell you before his name was selected.
Think about that, though. Think about that. That's complete malpractice.
Yes, sir.
That's complete malpractice by the Detroit Lions, right? And that's what we talked about last night before this draft went down, and what teams would commit malpractice before the Eagles pick, and that even before the Eagles' 30th pick, right? And you look at the Detroit Lions, they committed 2 malpractice attempts, right? Like, you draft a running back at 12. And then you're drafting
Robinson. Let's be
very clear about that. Classic linebacker. This is not an edge rushing linebacker. This is not like an outside linebacker like Nolan Smith, right? He's not going to go after the quarterback. This is just your tackling machine linebacker, Jack Campbell. Bro, good pick, Detroit. Bro, I don't know, man. If I was a Detroit fan, I would be pissed. I would be pissed off.
Jack Campbell over Nolan Smith. They took Jack Campbell over Miles Murphy. What are you guys doing?
I don't know, man.
It just perfectly.
Look at that, though, Dylan. They had 2 top 18 picks.
Yeah.
We had pick 9 and pick 30. They originally had pick 6 or some shit. I think they traded it to the Cardinals.
They did.
They come out of the draft with Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs. The Eagles come out with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith.
Oh, the Eagles 30th pick is better than both of those 2 picks.
Make that make sense, but that's malpractice. And then you had the wide receiver run in the early 20s. There was 4 straight wide receivers, which
was weird, man. It felt like a fantasy football draft. It really did. It felt like when JSN went off the board to Seattle at 20, it felt like the next string of teams just panicked and they were him, just in order down the road.
JSN and Addison are the only ones that I truly look at as first round talents.
Who took Zay Flowers again?
The Ravens took Zay Flowers. That one's interesting. It's interesting. I think that fit could be interesting. With
the Chargers pick was
Quentin Johnston, right? Like that didn't make sense, man. Are you getting rid of Keenan Allen or something? Like, what are you doing exactly here? Man. And then you talk about just the tight ends that fall. I want to go back to Vince Quinn, who said he would have taken Michael Mayer in the early teens of the first round. Vince, we got to swallow that one, bro. Swallow that one.
I love
it. But I would take him in the second round, sure.
Yeah. No, and that was also like the icing on top, right? Like, there's rumors, and shout out to Hunter. Like, Hunter's sitting here like, I wouldn't mind a tight end, and Dalton Kincaid is 1 pick away. And then the Buffalo Bills leapfrog the Dallas Cowboys and take them.
Buffalo Bills.
And they're left with a D tackle that apparently Micah Parsons texted Dan Quinn about that day. He really wanted him. He got him. He was excited about it. There's people that I know that dive really deep into the draft. And again, what do we really know? But that had this Mozzie. I don't know who he is. They had him with like a third round grade, and you took him with the 26th overall pick. So
he's a run stopper. I mean, in that sense, it will help them in that case. But I don't know.
Was he the best run stopper on the board?
When you talk about what HP or Hunter said on our show yesterday about the Cowboys, and he said take best player available, and I think that's where you ultimately point to that situation, and you failed. You didn't. That's what you have to look at that situation and reflect on, and they did not do that. I think maybe the Dalton Kincaid pick from the Bills So that one was
Kinda
interesting.
shocked.
They got Dawson Knox, but that is another level, I
Yeah, I
think,
would
of
say
tight
Dawson
end that
Knox
you
is
bring
on his
in.
way out the door.
Yeah, so
Whatever.
interesting what they had there. But this draft, man, it was a pretty crazy first round, like just from the jump, right? Like, you had Houston taking CJ Stroud, which really nobody saw up until right before the draft. I think you said
Right.
turned into
His
like
odds
minus
shifted.
1,600
Yeah.
odds that he goes second pick, which then at that point. But then they surprise you and they trade back up to the third pick.
Yeah, that was wild.
Will
What was
Anderson.
even more wild is that Daniel Jeremiah in his final mock draft had that. And
Had
like
them doing
everyone was
that.
like shouting him out. I was like, how the hell did you even
You
like think
predict
to
that.
mock this?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. What do you think about that? Like the Texans going all in and then, going back and getting Will Anderson.
so I think the in now part of you, like you love it. Like you had two of the top 3 picks. You get your quarterback, hopefully of the future. You get your cornerstone edge rusher and Will Anderson. D'Amico Ryan starts to build that defense. Unfortunately, I think you gave up way, 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 way too much.
Yeah.
Moving back to 3 from
Yeah.
12 or wherever the hell they were. They gave up a boatload to move up and get Will Anderson. And like maybe it's not even like so much horrible from the Texans standpoint. I think it was just a really good move for the Cardinals, who didn't even want to
That's a
be in
good
that
point.
in that spot. And you got that big that big offer, and you jumped right on it.
This is always, you see this every year
Can
where
I ask you a
somebody
question?
falls.
Which one is his girlfriend? Because he had 18 different women on his lap. Is nobody else questioning what was going on last night?
Yo, yeah. See, this is where we cross the line, and I wouldn't draft him either. You put mayo in the coffee, dog. Like that's weird. It's weird. And then you add in the statistics against the SEC teams and how bad they were. I'm not surprised to see him
Hey,
fall.
my question is which one? All right, if it's the brunette one, who was the blonde on his lap in the first half? If that was his sister, that's incredibly weird. Like, she wasn't just next to him, bro. She was like leg over, hand on chest.
Damn, Amir got us covered, yo.
He said he looked it up.
The name.
Right,
We got
I'm
the
so
name
curious what
drop.
the first one was.
Gia Duddy. How about that? Go ahead, Will Levis, man. You got a popular girl. But
I don't know, like,
couldn't get picked.
because there was definitely his mom to his right on the couch, but then he had another blonde next to his mom, who I guess was his sister, but then the other one was, I don't know. It was a very weird setup, very weird situation. I didn't think you need to shove 4 people if they're all related on a small couch together like that. Yeah, so I don't know, man. And then you
It
almost
sucks
had
to
like another,
see.
remember like the CD Lamb draft night moment when he snatches his phone back from his girl. I don't know if you people, like, Will had like his phone on his chest, and like the brunette, I guess his girlfriend, right? The brunette girl like looked over, and he put it a little bit closer to his chest.
It's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, he's like, you got to look at this.
Well, because like at that point, I feel like if I'm him, I'm sitting there and my family's probably freaking out. His mom's probably whispering in his ear, "Oh my God, Will, you're not drafted yet. What are we gonna do? Are you okay?" And like he's just sitting here, like, relax. You know what I mean? Like, shut up, shut the hell up.
Yeah, he's definitely
He's
going
definitely
early
salty.
today. He's definitely going early today.
Yeah.
But
It's interesting though when you think about the Texans. To D-Rab's comment up a little earlier, they basically said Stroud over Levis, right? And it shows you the difference in their perspective of those two quarterbacks, because they gave up all of that to go up and get Stroud, right? And you could still be sitting here and you could have got Will Levis, right? So it shows the
you
difference.
find it odd that 3 QBs went in the top 4 and then not another was selected in the first round? Like, I mean, I guess if you look back on previous drafts, it's kind of mostly how it works out. But like, I feel like just like the Lamar year, like there's just a lot of instances where a team trades in back end of the first and takes that quarterback for the extra 5th-year option, as I mentioned with Nolan Smith earlier. Like,
I think it just speaks to
all non-QBs.
It speaks to basically this draft being pretty weak in the quarterback category, right? And I think that's what it speaks to just a ton of question marks that comes with Will Levis. And I think to that point, that's why you see him drop out of the first. He's just not a surefire thing. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, one, how far will he drop? Where can we get him later in the draft if we are thinking about drafting him? And then the other thing is, when is he going to be able to play, right? If you're a quarterback needing team, is this the route that you're going to go, Will Levis? Like, I don't know at that point. It seems like that's not the case. So you look around the league, it's interesting the decisions that are being discussed, because you look at the Texans, for example, just bringing that back up, they trade back up to be able to take CJ Stroud and Will Anderson in a row. But looking at that situation, there was a lot of contemplation about even taking CJ Stroud with the number 2 pick, right? So that was the interesting thing for me, is like, the Houston Texans really have nothing at quarterback. They have Davis Mills, right? He's a I don't even know, man. I don't even know. I don't want to disrespect.
Davis Mills is a top 25 quarterback.
Yeah, he's mediocre, right? He's a mediocre, borderline starting quarterback for a team that's not competing, right? But they weren't even for sure that they were going to take the CJ Stroud at the 2 pick. So it just shows that, you know, teams maybe are willing to wait a draft to get the quarterback that they want. Like, they're open to that idea of being patient and waiting to even that next draft to get the best quarterback available. Top one. Oh, we're going in on Will Levis now. Oh, Davis Mills. My bad. I read the name wrong. Davis Mills got the long neck.
Will Levis has a pretty normal neck. But
yeah, he has a normal neck. You're right.
Not normal food taster sense. But listen, man, let's circle back around. Let's reel this back into the birds, and we'll move forward here in just a few minutes. But again, like, I'm sure on another show next week, we have all summer to talk about these 2 kids in this draft. And obviously we're going to wait till the full draft class, is finished anyway, before we dive into what they bring to this team. But it's just a lot of raw emotion and excitement today as an Eagles fan. And I think I texted you last night. I texted multiple people, like, man, the Celtics wrap things up with the Hawks. We got Sixers Celtics on deck, second round. I got a full summer and year of Phillies baseball, and it's like, you get that night, you get that result, and football season is so far away, man. It just seems so far away. Philadelphia Bulldogs, bro.
Hey, we can just do the Eagles, their new Eagles logo, and then just make the G.
The Georgia. Absolutely.
The Georgia G, man. Once we add DeAndre Swift, you have to. You got the offensive factor out of Georgia. So
it's just so beautiful. Like, no more TCU wide receivers, no more like SEC, specifically the best defense in college football. And we're just going to take and take and take until that well is all dried up. And, you know, again, you can't give enough props and credit to Howie Roseman for last night. The way he allowed the board to just play itself out, the fact that Nolan Smith was mocked to go 10 at the Eagles, and he don't have to move up for him. He don't have to do nothing. He falls right to them at 30. The fact that Jalen Carter, we thought was going to kind of take maybe a little bit of a haul and have to move up 3 or so spots to get him. He falls to 9. You have to move up 1 spot for a 4th. It was an unbelievable day. You bring in 2 studs, obviously one of which potentially being the best prospect in this draft. And they're day one guys. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Yeah. Like, sure, you're going to argue with the way that they're going to rotate this line. Well, you brought them in to be a part of rotation. Yes, because that's the way that this defense, that's the way that this motor is run, right? And this engine is fueled. And it's like, just to envision what this defensive line is going to look like. And you know what's funny, man? It really made me think just now, like, of all the offseason talk from other fan bases and media outlets, and look what the Eagles are losing, all that, you know, they spent the house to get to a Super Bowl, and now they lost everybody. Yeah. Yeah. We lost Javon Hargrave. Oh no. We lost TJ Edwards. Oh shit. Okay. This defense might be better than ever. On day 2, man. But
no, I agree, man.
Build championship teams with a team full of champions. 110
pedigree,
correct. Cole, who do we want on day 2, man?
We're
in the mid 60s, right? We don't have a second round, or am I wrong on this?
We have a second round.
You do?
It's just at the end of the second round. So
Okay.
62
Right,
is
right, right,
at
right.
the end. So it's our regular second round pick. It's
Right.
our second round pick. So yeah, we do have 62 and then we have 66 in the third round. So I think 62, that would be the third pick in the third round, I believe, that we got from the
Right.
pick swap with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
I think
interesting,
this
man.
is basically where you're at for D. Like I would probably agree here.
Yeah.
Um, now is the time you can take that offensive line depth, right? If there is a change of pace, pass catching type of running back out there, you can take a flyer on him.
Zach
Secondary,
Charbonnet.
as you mentioned, I mean, I think like right now, like you're coming off that high, and like you see guys like Joey Porter, and you see guys like Brian Branch, and you're sitting like you would just love them so much, right? But it's they're not falling all the way to the back end of the second
Yeah.
round. And I don't envision Howie trading up into the earlier mid-second round, but you never know, man. You
Never
never
know.
know with all that draft capital they have last year. Cole, I will take your word for this.
There's a lot of I don't know, man. There's a couple different Bama boys left in this pool here, so it's interesting to think about as
I guess
well.
wide receiver, you like
Yeah, I
possibly.
think at a certain point, maybe not with this second round pick. I think with this second round pick, you still got to go a little bit, best fit mixed with best player available.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
once you're past that 62nd pick, I think you just go with best player available with the way this Eagles team is built. And most likely it will be O-line depth. It'll be wide receiver depth. Maybe a running back, right? Maybe a running back in the draft if the right guy falls in place for him. I don't think they're going to do any trading around to get a running back in this draft. But it'll be interesting because if they trade a running back, that basically, or if they draft a running back, excuse me, that basically takes them out of the running for trading for, an established running back in the NFL, a Swift, a Derrick Henry. So it's interesting to keep your eyes open for that as well if they actually do go that running back route. But today, I honestly would expect O-line depth. I think that knack is calling
It's
Howie.
well deserved, man. It's well
Yeah.
deserved now.
Hey, we were patient. We were patient through the first
Hell
round.
yeah.
Go ahead, Howie. You can take your O-line that you want in the second round, whoever it is.
I mean, I think this
That
comment's
may
pretty
be.
important as well. Like, obviously,
Yeah,
we as fans
yeah,
want, and we don't, know best or always know best, right? But there has been times in the past when he does have that smartest man in the room type of personality, and he overthinks it. And even if a pick doesn't hit, if you just took the sensible selection here, you
yeah,
wouldn't get crushed. But when you go outside the box and you color outside the lines, you're going to get crushed. These two picks, as D-Rab's saying here, even if somehow, forget like the Jalen Carter pick, I'm not even talking or going to speak in the realm of possibility that he doesn't pan out because he's going to. Let's say Nolan Smith. He's too small. He doesn't work out as an edge rusher. No one's going to crush you for the Nolan Smith pick at 30.
yeah,
No, because we were all wrong at that. Everybody
yeah,
and their mother was wrong in the Philadelphia area, and it was the right pick. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So you can't be
There's no
mad
losing
there.
here.
Offensive line depth, obviously. Yep, 100%. I agree with both of you guys here. Could definitely be in play today. You would have to imagine it. It almost is. What's interesting though, Scotty? Before we move on for the last couple minutes, Vince Quinn, the one thing he did bring up to us on Wednesday was we mentioned like a Buda Baker type of trade and Howie Roseman being active on the phones, right? And he kind of alluded to the fact that it wouldn't be night one.
Yeah,
He kind of said as the weekend plays on, you could see something. So now as you get into like now it could be interesting if anything was to happen. And like it's almost like it almost feels too good to be true again, where like you could have this draft and somehow still trade with the Cardinals and get Buda Baker. But it's like, it makes you wonder if that's why Brian Branch wasn't selected. And they went again with another Georgia defensive lineman. And it also like makes you think like Buda Baker's going to be traded. He's
yeah,
going to be moved. He's not going to play in a Cardinals uniform this year. So the question is when and to whom? Could it be the Eagles? The smoke is definitely there. Nights like today and tomorrow make sense for moves like that to be done.
yeah.
So we
We're right
will
in that
see, man.
ballpark. We're right in that ballpark for where the value is for Buda Baker. Like, would I give up the 60-second pick today
I think that's a good point.
for Buda Baker? Yeah, I would. So I think we're getting into that territory where, okay, you're not going to trade day 2 picks on day 1, right? You
Right.
trade day 2 picks on day 2 and make that move that you want to make. So I think today, maybe if the Cardinals see somebody they like in the second round, maybe that's something that intrigues them. It's probably going to be the second round pick and something else, and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah.
something else added on there as well. But nonetheless, I think that would be my goal today. I know I said it jokingly earlier. Buda Baker's who I'd want to Cole's question, but it is. That's the answer. Like, I want the established presence. I want to now bring in that dog leader in the secondary that we need.
Could you
Yeah,
imagine?
I mean, it's
Forget like today or tomorrow, man. Give me a month or two, and imagine if Buda Baker's in Midnight Green with what was accomplished last night.
I think it honestly. I'm not. I guess I shouldn't get my hopes up, but
Now, I'm being serious. You
I
are
have a weird
talking
feeling
about
over
you
the
are
next few
talking
days.
about argument for the best defense in the league. That's what we're
Yeah.
discussing.
Absolutely. I mean, they already were, and you get Jalen Carter, who is maybe not as good as Hargrave. He's probably not going to eclipse double-digit sacks this year, but he's a
Here's the
quality,
thing, Scotty. Here's the thing. I
replacement.
feel like we've been conditioned to think that because of former first-round picks not stepping in right away, not having this type of premier talent. This kid is the best piece in the draft. Does he have maybe the overall hype that Micah Parsons had coming out right 2 years ago? No, but Micah Parsons, like we sit here and like we don't think about the fact that Jalen Carter could easily run away with defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he very well could. And if he's going to do that, maybe he does get 11 and a half sacks this year because of what's like, you know what I mean? Like, we're so conditioned as Eagles fans to not have those type of day one studs out of the draft, if that makes sense.
My thinking with it just comes from the fact of what we have, and he's just going to be rotated in with those guys and learn from those guys.
So was Hargrave, though, to be honest.
That's my thought. Yeah, I get that. It would be incredible if Jalen Carter comes out and gets 11 and a half sacks as a rookie, like replacing Javon Hargrave cleanly like that. I'm not going to get my hopes up for that, but it's possible with the talent level that we're talking about here. It's just how many snaps does he get with this unit? But we'll see how it plays out. I would imagine he gets more than Jordan Davis, especially. But then you look at the safety.
Got to get in better shape first, but I'm sure that'll be taken care of in the next.
You look at the safety position with Buda Baker. That's an immediate upgrade for CGJ. I know we love CGJ. We wanted to bring him back. Buda Baker's an easy upgrade in that position. So it's an insane thought, but it's not out of the realms of possibilities. I think
Absolutely
we saw with the Cardinals, we do have that semi connection with Jonathan Gannon, right? So you look at him. Is Buda Baker a guy that he would want to give up out of that defense? Probably not. That's the leader of that defense, but he wants to go compete for a championship right now, and that's not what the Cardinals can do. So when you start thinking about where can I send Buda Baker that would fit his personality, fit what he wants, be able to give him the money that he wants as well, I think the Eagles are one of 2-3 teams that can actually do that and give him a place to compete for a
He's
championship.
already hand selected them, man. And he's already hand selected them. And if there's anything to a players league, as we've kind of seen in the past, obviously it's way more so in the NBA, but you have seen it in the NFL. Like Aaron Rodgers doesn't go to the Jets if he doesn't want to go to the Jets.
Yeah.
Like players, especially with that have been in an organization long enough, and the organization, they've been good to them this whole time, and it feels like, you kind of owe it to him to send him where he wants to go.
Yeah,
and not that you're going to move him, inner division, right? Like the Cardinals, I don't think would trade him to like the Seahawks if he wanted to go to Seattle. But the Eagles, he's hand selected them basically already.
That would be honestly, I'm not joking, man. That would be my goal today. I know there's plenty of guys left on this board, of course, that I would be more than happy with the Eagles taking at 62. But if you can get Buda Baker, maybe it's not with that pick, maybe it's not today. But if you can get Buda Baker long term over this offseason, it's an A+ offseason. And then you start retracting back and you're like, the way the offseason started, you lose Javon Hargrave, you lose this, you lose CGJ, you lose that.
You will be better than you were.
It's
Better than you were.
It's insane to think about. You're looking at another home run offseason potential. I mean, it's already an A, I would say.
Yeah.
A offseason so far. You get any type of add-on to what has happened so far, right? Maybe somebody drops today and they just get somebody at 62, or they go and add somebody late after the draft, right before training camp. That's what we're approaching. We're approaching an A++ level of an offseason. Again, last season we had an A++ offseason. So it's like the rich are getting richer, and it's kind of crazy to see this all play out. It feels surreal because like last night I'm just on the phone with my boys and I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing because this shit is funny. Like, it's funny. It's funny how the Eagles are just one step ahead of everybody else in the NFL. It's crazy because you look around the NFL and you have Giants fans on a podcast like, oh, shit, the Eagles got him. Oh, I didn't want him to get Calijay Kancey out of Pittsburgh. Well, they got the best guy in the draft. What are we going to do? It's like you see these other fan bases freaking out. The Cowboys, you have Micah Parsons on live television. Can't contain himself to give praise to what the Eagles are doing. And just watching this all take place, it feels very surreal. It's like, man, we're getting everything that we've always deserved as Eagles fans. And it's a great feeling, man. It's just to watch Howie and the rest of this front office, the way they move and maneuver, all those smoke screens before the draft. The Eagles are going to take Paris Johnson. They're going to take Peter Skornowski. They're going to take JSN. They're going to take this guy. They're going to trade up for Will Anderson. They're going to take Bijan. And it's all just posturing. Because then you start hearing the rumors of execs talking about, oh, well, the Eagles can't get Bijan. So then once you have that creep into their head, now we've already won. Once that thought creeps into another NFL exec's head, the Eagles have already won the draft.
Yeah, man.
You see the way it played out. They did.
I think the biggest thing is also when it comes to a night like draft night, when it comes to the offseason you had last year, and even this season with the extension of Bradbury and Slay, and you extend AJ Brown post trade and you sign, Hassan Reddick, and now you have Carter and Smith for 5 years. And if you were to trade for Budda Baker, it's coming with an extension. Like, you are not talking about going all in for a year. You're not talking about going in for 2 years. You were talking about a 4 or 5+ year window. And by the time that's up, obviously, you would figure if Jalen Carter and or Nolan Smith are pillars, they will be extended and they will be here for, a decade plus. That's the idea of that top 10 pick. But it's like you are set up for the future as well as in such a great position to win now. And that's the beautiful thing, man. But listen, man, before we wrap the show up, 2 quick topics to hit on. Celtics take care of the Hawks last night, which really, with 4 minutes to go, seemed like there was going to be a game 7 back at TD Garden. I was hoping to see that on Saturday night as a Sixers fan, but that's not the case. And the Sixers Celtics are now locked in to start on Monday night. So I want to get your initial thoughts on that. And then also the Phillies win a 1-0 ball game yesterday against the Seattle Mariners. They take 2 of 3 against Seattle. They win another series. They have now won 8 of their last 11 games, I believe. They're back to 500. Well, they are 500 for the first time this season since being 0-0 to start the season. Bryce Harper, possibly on the way. He has a doctor's meeting on May 1st, and that's when you're getting your update. So just want to touch on that real quick. Let's start with the Phillies here, man. They take this series 1-0, or they take the series 2 out of 3. They win 1-0 yesterday afternoon against Seattle. And yesterday was a different type of win. Matt Strahm was phenomenal. The bullpen comes in. Jose Alvarado, Gregory Soto, Craig Kimbrell. Alvarado didn't pitch yesterday, but Craig Kimbrell looked amazing. Alvarado shuts the door the night before. This team, and then the night before, obviously had a comeback win that we didn't get to discuss. Right, down 5-2, they chip away. Start the bottom of the 8th inning off with 4 straight singles, drive in 2 runs, and they take the lead. And Alvarado shuts it down and shows a lot of emotion on the mound. This is what we've been waiting for, man. And it seems like it. You know what it seems like? Wednesday was the first time you and I overreacted from a single game. We did what we've told everyone to stop doing time to time. We got so amped up from the 3 games against Colorado and winning 6 of 8, and they lose a lifeless performance at home against the Mariners, and we overreacted. And we said, what is this team? Why can't they figure it out? And we didn't give them time to continue this trend. What do? They win 2 more, and they win the series, which is the goal of every series you go into. They've won 8 of 11. This team finally looks like it's putting it together. I sent you a stat yesterday of what this bullpen has not allowed in its last X amount of starts. That was before yesterday's shutout.
Yeah.
This bullpen has been so lights out, man. Matt Strahm has been such a breath of fresh air in the starting rotation. Nick Castellanos cannot stop hitting and leading this team to victories. He's the reason they won yesterday. Gets on first base early in the game, second inning, I believe, takes off with 2 outs. The defense adjusts, and Cody Clemens puts one in the gap. Nick scores off of it. That's all it took yesterday. He also made a game-saving sliding catch in right field. This team is starting to put it together. They are 500 for the first time all year. How are you feeling as the Fightins head on the road back to Houston tonight with all those memories?
Well, the good news is that the Houston Astros haven't been crazy good to start the season. They are getting on track though. I just checked. They're at 14-11 now, which is a lot different than what we looked when we looked at this last week. I believe they were
still not eye popping, right?
So they're playing better though. I'll give them that, and it's going to be a step up in competition, I would say. So we'll really get to see what the Phillies are made of here. But no, I think to your point, they're getting on track. And you said something in the midst there where you were talking about us overreacting on Wednesday, and I don't think that we did. I think when you come out and you have a lifeless performance, you're going to get called lifeless like that. You said it right there in that first game against the Mariners. They came out, and if you want to look like that, we get the right to react like that. And then you come and they completely switch it up in the next 2 games. So hopefully it got to them. Hopefully that energy, they felt it, because now you do see Alvarado at the end of the game, right? Showing emotion. You see Matt Strahm in the middle of the game yesterday. I was watching.
Yes.
He's sitting there on the mound, showing gestures. He strikes the guys out. He strikes the side out in the first inning, I think it was. And he just throws like a fist bump.
Matt Strahm's wild, bro.
That's what I want to see. Like, that's the emotion that I want to see out of these guys. Matt Strahm, I mean, let's talk about him. I mean, he's a really solid guy, right? He's their most solid pitcher right now, starting wise. You talk about from the start of the season, he's been the most consistent guy there, and he was the talk of the town throughout the afternoon yesterday. Now, you had people questioning when he was taken out of the game, right at the beginning of the 5th inning, but nonetheless, he's out there dealing. The bullpen was able to hold up their parts, so you can't even complain about that afterwards, right? Because the bullpen's playing so well, they didn't blow the lead. At the end of the day, they were able to keep that lead. But Matt Strahm, talking about him, do you move him back to the bullpen when Ranger comes back? Like, is he that bullpen piece that makes that bullpen now one of the best bullpens in the MLB? Or do you keep him rotationally in that starting lineup in the starting rotation of pitchers? It's a tough decision to make. I'm curious what your thoughts are there, though, man.
It's really tough, man, because there's 2 sides of this argument. You have the side of, okay, you've seen what he's been able to do in a starting role.
Yeah.
Imagine what he can bring to this bullpen, who has already elevated itself, and you add another arm to that and another strength piece to that. But do you really want to take him out of your starting rotation? And right. I know Phil, at Bearded Knowledge, everybody, Phil Phaithful has already tweeted about the fact that, do you move Bailey Falter to the bullpen as that kind of long reliever? And like that's the route I would go, man. I told you this the other day. Like, I'm not a Bailey Falter guy. Like, I'm just, I've tried to stay in and hang tough as long as I could with him. His 4.5 ERA and his 0-4 record is not going to cut it for the Phillies, man. And so, to me, I think it's going to be incredibly tough to move Matt Strahm out of this starting role if he continues to pitch like this. Now, obviously, a full season's work is a lot different than 4 or 5 starts. But he's making a very strong case to stay in the game. Why? Because he's shown the ability to get deeper and pitch cleaner into games than any other starter really has. He's done it more so than Bailey Falter. He's done it more so than Taijuan Walker. Hell, he's done it more so than Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
So to think that just because when Ranger comes back, he's the odd man out, I wouldn't necessarily view it as that. I also won't be like disappointed if if that is the route Rob decides to go. Ultimately,
it's a good decision to have to make, right?
It's a good problem to have.
Good problem to have, right? So, I'm with you because right now you look at Strom, of the starting pitchers, he leads them in ERA at least. So
wild, man. It's like the same. You know what the funny part is, man. What he's doing in the rotation is the same thing. What's happening in the lineup? It's it's what Brandon Marsh leading the MLB in certain categories. It's Bryson Stott and it being your best hitter, right? It's these other guys more so than Kyle Schwarber, more so than Trey Turner right now, and it's Matt Strom more so than Aaron Nola, and more so than Taijuan Walker. That's the ironic thing about it, and I just think if you want to look at it from a pessimistic standpoint, you can say, well, that's a problem, and you need your stars to step up, or you're not going anywhere. Or you can look at it glass half full like myself and say, I believe that my stars are going to snap out of it over the course of the season. It's still April. And if you can get even somewhat close to this level of production from the others, now you're set up for good position moving forward, man. So,
because did Trey have a hit yesterday? He did not, right?
I don't think so, man. No, I think he got on with a fielder's choice and then got to third base off of a single the very next time. But, yeah, no, Trey's on a little bit of a struggle bus.
That's the guy you don't worry about, really. But
yeah, Schwarber's on a struggle bus right now. JT's starting to snap out of it a bit. Boehm's been good, but Boehm's had a lot of one-for type of nights, so he's not hitting with the type of I don't know, aggressiveness and power that he was at the beginning of the season, but that'll even itself out. It's the bottom line. If you can get Boehm hitting around 300 still, and you have Marsh and Stott stepping up, and Edmundo Sosa continues to be really good, you're going to be okay when Bryce returns and Ranger returns, man. So the Phillies 500 for the first time all season. Let's see if they can keep it going tonight. Aaron Nola on the bump versus Framber Valdez. In Houston, World Series rematch tonight. Let's see what Knowles can bring you, because let's face it, man, this is now his biggest start of the season. Yeah. This is the game you really desperately want to go out and prove you belong and prove that this team has some juice flowing to them right now, and he needs a big start personally himself today. So all eyes on Nola tonight. Scotty, last topic on board.
I was just going to say on your Nola point, he has been technically, he's been one of the worst starters for the Phillies so far this year. So
I would argue that
if not the worst. If not the worst.
I would argue that he's been the worst in terms of production, in terms of level of expectation you set for that player.
Needs something tonight, man.
I mean, my God, has he even gotten through 5 innings this year? Like outside of the Reds game, in which we had a 13-0 leader or whatever. I don't know if he's going deeper outside of that. So Aaron Nola needs to step up tonight, man. So I agree. All eyes on Knowles tonight. Sixers Celtics, man. Initial thoughts. I guess just from watching that Hawks series, they kind of give you a little bit of a blueprint. We saw Boston not hesitate but struggle even to put the Hawks away. What are your initial thoughts before we break this series down on Monday morning?
You look at this series with the Hawks and the Celtics, and all I can take from it is that the Celtics are very beatable. I think coming into the playoffs, it was easy to fall into the trope of, the Celtics are too good. They beat us 3 out of 4 times. There's no way. We don't want to see them in the second round. And I think I've totally moved past that completely. Like, I don't have the fear that I had throughout the regular season of playing Boston in the playoffs. That it's kind of disappeared, and maybe it's the adrenaline of knowing it's here, and now it's time to nut up and be ready for this series. But I just think from the way Boston looked against Atlanta, now mind you, it's all different matchups. Trae Young's a different animal than what the Sixers present overall, but you look at what the Hawks were able to do, and Trae Young was able to pick his spots. He was able to find guys, get other guys involved, and I think you can see similar things. We saw Harden throughout the regular season have his way against the Celtics in a sense. We just need Maxey to get on track against Boston. He had a great first round series against Brooklyn. You just need to continue that with that confidence. There's no reason that he shouldn't be able to just continue to play the same way, right? They're not going to put Marcus Smart may guard him from time to time, but most of the time he's going to be on Harden, right? So I don't know. I'm just looking at this from a matchup standpoint. We don't have to get too deep into it, but
Yeah, no.
overall feel of going into this series, there's just no fear. I'm actually excited for game 1 in Boston to see what the Sixers come out and do. And the one other thing that I'll mention here is if they force the game, Boston forces or Atlanta forces that game 7 with Boston, gets it drug out. I think the game would be on Saturday or Sunday, something like that. And then you push the weight for the Sixers back even more. I think, Doc talked about it in a recent interview after a practice. It's a long time the Sixers are waiting right now. So I'm actually okay with them just going to game 6. I think you get that perfect balance of getting this whole week off, but then you get right back to it the start of next week, and you're not having any more lag there. I think any more time off is just not even
unfortunately, with Atlanta not getting the job done last night, there wasn't going to be any more time off.
So it was
Boston was going to be screwed. Boston was going to play Saturday game 7
no matter
and then
what.
have to turn around if they win and play Monday regardless.
Okay, I
do feel you though. The quote unquote jet lag could be tough. Obviously, the only positive is it helps, Joel Embiid rest up that LCL on that knee. It helps James Harden battle through whatever demons and whatever struggles he's going with right now. So we'll see, man. Initial thoughts. You can only be more confident, right? Watching that series. And, you can argue if you're a Boston fan, well, they just didn't take them seriously. Look, man, I get you lost a home game. It went 6 and it went 6 to the final 2.5 minutes of game 6.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like that is like last year, right? The Sixers went up 3-0 on Toronto. They lost game 4 in Toronto. They come home, they take care of business. Boston comes home, game 5. They lost game 3 in Atlanta. You should have taken care of business. You didn't. You should have came out with a lot of energy last night. You didn't. And it's just such a shift in mindset for me. As we talked to Kai Carlin, the week we started this Phaithful Fanatics morning show, and he kind of just said, do the Sixers have a shot? Yeah, they have a shot, but I don't view them as a team that's going to get by Boston. And I kind of shared the same kind of, maybe not fear, but the same kind of, maybe we're not on that level, right? The way I watch Boston struggle in this series and the way I watch the Sixers not hesitate to knock the Brooklyn Nets out in 4. Oh, they have more than a shot. They have more than a shot. And I might not be hesitant to say I might slightly favor them right now. I really might. And you mentioned game 1, incredibly important. Obviously, it's the one you look to steal on the road. It's the one you come out with energy and look to take. And obviously you never want to secede a playoff game and say, well, they don't have to win it. You know what I mean? They're all must wins essentially. But it's like you mentioned like seeing how they come out. It's almost like that. It's like, okay, the Sixers don't have to win game 1. Let me see how they come out and look against Boston in that raucous crowd in game 1. You know what I mean? Like you ultimately want to win game 1. Duh. Yeah. But if they come out and they take Boston to the wire and you see a lot of positives. Now, also you could look at that and say you gave them one of your best shots and you couldn't beat them and you had all this time off. I get it. But if you take Boston to the wire in game 1 and I see a lot of different ways you can exploit them, I'm probably going to feel pretty good moving forward in that series.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think you got to come out and give them a strong punch at the beginning of the series and show them that you're not going to be a pushover in this series. And I agree with you. I think I went from the thinking of it wouldn't be so bad if the Sixers lose to Boston. They're championship caliber. Like if they go on and win the championship, it's not that bad. At this point, I'm going to be pissed if we lose to Boston. I feel the very same that I felt a couple years ago where things have kind of played out in the Sixers' favor if it could play out in their favor at all. Yep. And similar to the Eagles draft last night, it's a great show to bring this up and maybe to end on. But this playoffs, it played kind of like the draft did for the Eagles, right? Where things fell into our lap. And I think with the Bucks being eliminated, mind you, I'm not going to sit here and disrespect the Heat and the Knicks. That's going to be an incredible series. They're going to go at it. Jimmy versus Brunson. That's going to be a crazy matchup. But I would rather play either of those teams than Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals.
100%.
You can't look past the Celtics. We can.
No.
The team can't.
And this is where we get boned that the NBA doesn't reseed their playoffs, but
it's okay. We'll just knock the Celtics out in the second round and
make the
ruin
ECF,
their season.
Make the ECF a little bit more doable.
We'll make their season a failure, similar to the way Giannis in the Bucks season was a failure.
I was just going to say it's a damn shame we didn't get to speak on that this morning, but maybe throughout the next week, maybe we'll put out a short on it or something. But
Sixers in 7. Let's go.
I will say Giannis Antetokounmpo gets a lot of passes from a lot of people
in the media
simply because he's a nice, likable guy.
My thing, Dylan, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but
go down this rabbit hole.
He's not a nice, likable guy. He's like a fraud.
I think he's a little bit of a prick.
Likable guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he puts on a little bit of a show. Like it's just so funny, man. Like he had the thing in Philly earlier in the year with the ladder situation, and it's like, you know, instead of looking at him like a dick, like most other, like if Joel Embiid did it, people would be criticizing him. Instead, his work ethic. Look how hard he wants to. Shut up.
Yeah, like get out of here, my man Zach Noble. Shout out to my guy. That's my guy.
No, let's call it.
Talking about it gives you chills, dog. Like what? Like come on, man. Like
let's call it this. Let's call it this. He tried to lay out a life lesson, right? And I get it, right? And then he brings up the MJ point. He said Michael Jordan played 15 seasons. He won 6 championships, where the other 9 seasons, you know, a failure. And a couple of those seasons, you know, when MJ was washed at the beginning of his career, I believe he didn't even make the postseason, or he did lose in the first round of his young career, right? But, you know, that was before Michael was Michael. Like, he was still, you get what that was before championship Michael. So, like, you would argue that was pre-champion ring Giannis, right? If he would have got knocked out in the first round. You would argue that, like, listen, the season is a failure because of how it ended. Like, he's trying to make it out to be, we didn't win the championship, so you're calling it a failure.
Yeah, it's not like that. No.
You got beat in 5 in the first round.
Round 1.
As the 1 seed.
That
is a failure, my friend. It is
the
definition of a failure. You didn't lose to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals or the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Hell, you didn't lose in the second round to the Miami Heat or the New York Knicks. You lost in 5, round 1, as the overall 1 seed. Scotty,
Game 2 years in Milwaukee.
2 years ago when the 76ers. Oh, by the way, you missed 13 free throws in this game and wanted no part of having the ball late down the stretch because you didn't want you had Ben Simmons syndrome. And by the way, I don't know if you saw who was on the floor for Miami in overtime, but it was a G League team. It was Jimmy Butler and a G League team. Cody Zeller, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent,
Highsmith.
Yeah. Are you kidding me, bro? And you don't want to call this a failure? 2 years ago, the Sixers were the 1 seed, and they lost in 7 to the Atlanta Hawks. Was that viewed as a failure?
Absolutely.
Yes. And the team was basically blown up internally because of that outcome. But and you want to tell me that this wasn't a failure? That is a joke, bro.
You have people pointing to Giannis' injury. Like, get out of here, man. He played in 3 of the 5 games. Right. Tyler Hero, it was missing the entire series.
And they're not the same. Like, this is not Reggie Miller calling them the same thing, right? Or Tyler Hero being worse. But this is the point, right? It's not like it's not about that he didn't win a championship. Forget not winning the championship. Yeah. You lost in 5 in the first round as the overall 1 seed. That's the problem.
And to your point, not winning a championship is also a failure. Like, that is a failure as well. You can call it whatever you want and to make yourself feel better about it, but it is a failure. And my biggest thing with it is the way, like you said, the media panders to this guy, because if LeBron ever said that, if Joel Embiid ever said anything like that, if Kevin Durant ever went on a spiel like that after a game where he gets eliminated in the first round in 5 games,
well, look how
these guys
personal
would be
he made it
pinned
too, man.
to the
He
cross.
didn't just go on like on a life speech and a positivity rant. He
And
got
he
asked
did.
a question, I guess the same question he got last year by the same reporter, and he puts his hands in his face and directly attacks the reporter. Wasn't attacking Giannis for coming up short. He was saying, "Is the season a failure?" Just like he said it last year. And Giannis wants to hold on to a grudge and say, Eric, just because you didn't get a promotion, or is that a failure?
See,
no.
And
like
that's where I'm like, why are we applauding this guy for what he said? That's disrespectful to even compare your position as an NBA player to a reporter that is not making nearly as much money as you.
I'm not defending media, man, but we've seen how
well, people call that a dumb question. You can't call that a dumb question.
Oh no, I'm
but
not.
then say that Giannis's answer is just immaculate.
I know.
It's the immaculate answer to a question that shouldn't have been asked.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. My point about the media was, like, we've seen some questions that they've asked before and how rude they can be. And don't get me wrong, if that guy personally came at Giannis and he's a dick and Giannis responded in a dick manner, I wouldn't care. I would say good for Giannis.
Yeah.
He asked a very simple question. You are the 1 seed.
Yeah.
You lost in 5 on your home floor. Was this season a failure? And he wants to throw a hissy fit, man. And people want to take it into good graces. And it is a total lack of accountability, but some people want to praise it.
I think it shows how
we went down that rabbit hole.
I know. I think it just shows how soft the rest of the fan bases are to NBA, to players in sports in general, where Philadelphia and their fans, we get criticized so heavily for being a toxic fan base. No, we just hold our players accountable, man. And that's it at the end of the day. You see these media members like pandering to Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks fans. I wouldn't want to hear Embiid say this shit.
Are you joking?
I would be pissed.
The city would burn down if Joel Embiid said some shit like that, dude.
Like, get out of here.
They're all hypocrites, Scotty. Each and every person defending Giannis right now is a hypocrite. Do you know why? Because if Joel Embiid said it, if, like you mentioned, all those other superstar names said it, they would be getting crucified at the moment.
Yeah. This is just going to slide under the rug, and we're going to forget about it.
That is going to wrap up this Friday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. We covered it all. Eagles draft night 1, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. You both are Philadelphia Eagles. Sixers, Celtics, round 2. Initial thoughts. Phillies win another series. They win 8 of 11, are back to 500 for the first time since the start of the season. They head to Houston tonight. And then, obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo is a asshole. With that said, that is going to wrap up this show. Guys, don't forget, first and foremost, to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to check us out in the link tree. It's in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform. We are available on IG, Instagram, IG, Facebook, TikTok, all that good stuff. But most importantly, if you guys want to be interactive like so, the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on the screen here with us is the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for whenever we go live, and enjoy your weekend. Quick announcement, Scotty and myself.
Great call.
The show will be pushed forward. Right? Forward. Yes.
Backward.
Back in time, but forward technically.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky. We will be live between 7 and 7:15 a.m. for the next 6 weeks on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as my man Scotty gets a promotion at work. So shout out
blessing
to Scotty.
and a curse.
Yes, sir. But after those 6 weeks are up, we will be back at our regularly scheduled time. But come hang out with us. Get a cup of coffee. If you're driving to work early in the a.m., hook us up to the radio, whatever it is. But we'll be live here with you guys even earlier in the morning. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your weekend.
Go Birds.
And Philadelphia has it.